So we're week 3 into our series on Psalms. Ian started us off with a fabulous overview of the Psalms and helped us to think about Psalm 103. And then last week, David beautifully led us through Psalm 19 and challenged us about how we live our lives to help with the climate crisis that we're in. And today, as we've already heard, we're looking at Psalm 46. It's one of those psalms that has very familiar parts to it and lends itself to lots of hymns and songs with a wide variety of uses and no doubt effects, as we're discovering this morning. We'll swing from the Dam Busters to Be Still and Know, such a gentle song that's much loved. And then for the offertory, we'll hear Finlandia as we sing another Be Still song. I hope that music doesn't play too much with your emotions. God is our refuge and strength in our world, in our country today, where there are many who are desperately seeking refuge and strength for all that's been happening around us. The families of Bibi, Daisy and Alice, the little girls murdered in Southport nearly 2 weeks ago, must be desperately seeking strength as they come to terms with that most hideous crime that robbed them of their daughters and led to the unrest and rioting that we've seen. For us, thankfully, only on our televisions, but has rocked many of our cities and towns and has created so much fear. We've seen scenes of awful violence and abuse, full of hatred towards those who've made their homes in our country, having often fled from desperate situations. To turn on them with this violence has appalled us all and has thankfully in some places led to peaceful protests, calling for hope and not hatred. Paula Gooder is Canon Chancellor of St. Paul's Cathedral and a well-known theologian who's written books that we've used here at St. Mary's, including The Women of Holy Week, and a version of Phoebe that I know a number of you have enjoyed. Paul is very accessible in her writing, and last year produced this book that's called Journaling Through the Psalms. The book is an opportunity to read any one of the psalms that she's chosen to home in on, to read them quietly and reflectively, and just notice the words or phrases that stand out for you. There's also some teaching mixed into each chapter. And it was what she says about Psalm 46 that particularly caught my eye and got me thinking about what has been happening and the reactions to it. She writes, Psalm 46 is a community song of confidence in God, an opportunity for the whole of God's people to gather together and declare their trust in God, who always protects them. Although in some ways all the psalms are community psalms, because they speak on behalf of all God's people. But there are some, like Psalm 46, that make it very clear that this is not just one person speaking on behalf of everyone, but of all God's people gathering together in lament or, as here, in praise. It's impossible to work out from the details contained in the psalm which particular event gave rise to it. But it seems likely that this song was written at a time of national emergency and crisis, at a time of threat for the nation as a whole. And in response to this threat, people gathered to declare their faith in the God who is an ever-present help in trouble. That sounds a familiar situation for us now, and we turn to him now. How often do we come together to use our common voice in expressing our sorrow or joy or trust in God, other than when we come together in our acts of public worship? What might be our community song if I sat here with my big bits of paper that I love and big pens, and we wrote words to relate to our own community, perhaps lamenting of some of the things that we see around us, or rejoicing about the place that we're in and the lives that many of us are fortunate to lead? I wonder what would be the community song or psalm of the people of Southport or Rotherham or Tamworth or Sunderland, and the list could go on. The places that have seen destruction and violence filled with hatred. What's been heartening is to see the community groups that have gone onto their streets the night after the rioting to clear up and help those who've had mosques or businesses severely damaged, and who've helped to strengthen the bridges between them. I wonder if this morning you spotted the headline on the BBC website that is about one of the shopkeepers in Southport, and the headline to it is, "My Southport shop was looted by rioters and then saved by strangers." And a Sri Lankan who had one of the small shops in the area near to where the rioting took place, that saw the destruction and looting, is then praising those who said a beauty salon did a crowdfunding to raise about 11,000 to help towards repairs. The local builder replaced his windows for free. One of the suppliers filled up a cabinet with ice cream. So a few days later, he was able to open his shop. He said, "You never imagine you're going to get that support," but he did, and was able to praise those who, and feel strengthened by those around them. The peaceful process against racism have taken place, and I saw one placard that said, "Hope, not hatred, united against racism." Many groups of different faith leaders have come together to pray together, to support one another, to speak out, and have said loudly that this violence is not in my name. And I would be saying that too. We need to pray for the building of relationships and the stamping out of violence against others across all communities and faith. As we reflect a little more on Psalm 46, it falls into three sections. Firstly, an invitation to all to see God as the shelter and refuge that it can be from the rain or storms in weather, or the storms of life, a place of strong protection when we are in need of help. For each of us, that translates into something different. But to know God is there in times of chaos, when the waters are roaring and foaming, can give comfort and assurance. The second section brings a calmness as we hear the words about God's city, where the river's streams rejoice and make glad. Outside of the city, the water crushes, but inside it's refreshing and joyful with God's protection there. And then in the final section, we hear the invitation to come and see who God is, how he can protect and give strength, how his love will prevail, to witness to others who God is and what he's done for the world. And then those words which we hear so often, which we love to sing, and are a huge invitation to stop and appreciate the God who gives us life, who is the bread of life and sustains us and is always there. Be still and know that I am God. In a time when so much is going on around us, not just in our own country, but in Gaza and other parts of the Middle East, in Ukraine, in the US, We crave for a stillness to be and to hear God's voice. Sometimes these words are interpreted as perhaps thinking that there's no need to do any good in the world because God does it. But that's a misunderstanding. Paula Gooder tells us that the Hebrew word used means to sink down or to relax. She writes that this is suggesting that we should stop running around terrified of what's going on, worried about things in the world that we can't control, but instead rest in the knowledge of who God is. I'm going to read the words of Psalm 46 again, and then invite you to sit in the peace of this place, to reflect on our world today, the people who are hurting, our community here, and know that God is here with us. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gave way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes war cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." This afternoon, there is a walking treasure hunt. So if you come between 2 and 2:30, you can pick up your treasure hunt. It's about a mile. You need your phone with you. What else, Michael? Sense of humour. Sorry? A sense of humour. A sense of humour. So do come along to that. And tea and cake will be served afterwards. So probably about 3:30, 4:45. If you're not doing the treasure hunt and you want to come and have some tea and cake, then come along then as well. 3 churchyard tidy-ups have happened over the last 10 days. Thank you so much to those who come and done bits around the churchyard. If you look, it's all looking so much better. June brought the sun and the rain and the grass that grew and grew and grew. So all sorts have been done. And actually, Ryan did a brilliant job. There was a tombstone that had got knocked down, and there was a bit of stone up still there, so we're trying to get rid of it. There was some metal holding it up as well, but Ryan persevered, and that's up. So, but there is always more to do. You will look around and see there's always more to do. So if anybody just wants to come along and do a bit around the beds or strimming, then please do. Next week there'll be afternoon teas. We're doing them every other week, although there's this week as well. Never think it's straightforward. If you can help at all, either to make tea or to bake cakes, then please be in touch with Natalie Beach, who's organising all of those. Judy's asked me to remind you about the lunches that are happening at the Wendover Christian Centre, this coming Tuesday and the next at 12:30. Anyone of any age are welcome. A delicious 2-course meal. and they need people to help for an hour beforehand or an hour afterwards. So there's a sheet at the back. If you want to know more, please talk to Judy as well. And then I need to share some sad news. Some of you already know this, but Di Grote emailed me yesterday evening to say that her father Charles died peacefully yesterday afternoon. He's been in a home in Bexhill for a number of years. Margaret died in 2019. And I've been trying to remember how old he must be. He's already 105, or about to be. I think he might have been 104 and probably 105 in December. So, and as we sang the first hymn to the Dam Busters tune, Charles wasn't a dam buster, but it just felt so appropriate. If you knew Charles, you'd known the amazing contribution that he and Margaret made through World War II. He was a member of the RAF, and so there will be a funeral, I'm sure, here in due course, but be praying for Di and her siblings and all of Charles's grandchildren and great-grandchildren as they mourn somebody who's had such a wonderful life. But we mourn him today. Thank you.